Hello and welcome to our stream. Today we are going to discuss the post-Stalinist Soviet Union and the leadership of Nikita Khrushchev. I want to welcome Comrade King.
Hello, my name's Comrade King. I'm also a Marxist-Leninist YouTuber. I make videos about all kinds of stuff, mainly history, such as about Post-Stalin USSR, and other videos. So if you're interested in Post-Stalin USSR and history and stuff like that, then just check out my channel.
Of course, and I want to welcome as well Arjuna from the great state of New York, and our moderator today.
Yeah, hello, I'm just gonna be moderating.
That sounds completely boring. It's like, I'm just gonna be moderating.
Like, yeah, I'm gonna make sure it doesn't get out of hand.
They don't even pay me.
He's our slave.
Yeah.
He's our slave.
This is slave labor.
Exactly.
Alright, so let's go. Arjuna, you can set up the discussion themes.
Okay, so since this is gonna be about Khrushchev and the secret speech man, then we're gonna go into some other topics like Brezhnev a bit later. But we're gonna start off simple. Comrade Hellas, what's your overall position on Khrushchev to start off with?
Thank you for asking. I do believe that Khrushchev's leadership from 1956 onwards was a very radical and destructive change that tore down many of the bases, many foundations and institutions on the base of the proletarian dictatorship and the ideologies of Marxist-Leninism. I also have a strong belief that Khrushchev's destructive economic policies, his weakness in foreign policy, have caused a great dismay to the Soviet Union and socialism worldwide, since I adhere to the principles that the Soviet Union should have shown a stronger, more reliable presence on foreign policy and maintain its socialism on the economic principles. Thank you.
Okay, Comrade King, how about your position?
Well, I disagree with Hellas. I believe that Nikita Khrushchev continued socialism. I believe that he also continued central planning, and that the worker state was still in power. I'd like to argue about all that stuff like state of the whole people, peaceful coexistence, and his economic reforms later. So yeah, we'll cover all that, and I believe that actually Nikita Khrushchev was more radical and more left wing than Stalin. We'll see. I'll tell you about that later. Okay. Now I'll hand the speech now over to Arhuna.
Okay, so starting position with your starting statements out of the way, I think we should just hop right into it. I think the first thing we should address is the secret speech, and that's the most commonly levied criticism against Khrushchev. Comrade Hellas, what's your position on the secret speech?
Hello, thank you again. I do believe that the secret speech that Khrushchev made in the 20th Congress of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union was totally destructive to the global socialism, since Khrushchev literally ridiculed and tore down the Stalin's culture of personality. In addition, he started many theories about showing the Gulag war camps to the public that was used as a tool from anti-communist powers in the West. Furthermore, he made allegations of Stalin's anti-Semitism, something that has been proven wrong by historians. And these false beliefs about the image of the great Generalissimo Stalin still persist amongst people living in the Western world and are used in great extent in order to denounce and condemn the values of socialism that are proven to be correct and are not to be ridiculed by the conspiracy theories related and alleged at only one individual.
At all?
Can you repeat the last part?
Yes, I'd say that the lies spread by Khrushchev towards the person of Stalin are used by Western people extensively to, let's say, portray the Soviet Union as an evil regime, as an oppressive regime. And the great deeds and achievements of the socialist people in the Soviet Union cannot be ignored because of the perpetuated lies that Nikita Khrushchev put upon a single individual, which is Generalissimo Stalin. This will be my opening statement on the secret speech of the 20th Congress, and I guess now we should go to Comrade King for his opening statement.
Okay, I straight want to reply to Comrade Hella's statements. He said that Khrushchev removed Stalin's personality cult. That's true, but that's actually a very Marxist-Leninist thing that Khrushchev did. Because Marx and Engels and Lenin as well, especially Lenin, opposed personality cults. Actually, let me quote Marx and Lenin. I'll post the quotes in the group chat that we are in. Okay, here. So this is from a 10th of November 1877 letter from Marx to Wilhelm Blaus. Marx said in the letter that I'll just quote him, "Neither of us cares a straw for popularity. Let me cite one proof of this. Such was my aversion to the personality cult that at the time of the International, when plagued by numerous moves, originating from various countries to accord me public honor, I never allowed one of these to enter the domain of publicity, nor did I ever reply to them, save with an occasional snub. when Engels and I first joined the secret communist society. We did so only on condition that anything conducive uh, to a superstitious belief in authority be eliminated from the rules. Essentially, we see here criticism from Marx and Engels of personality cults. They said that, personality cults are bad and stuff like that. And let me quote Lenin as well. This is from a 1983 Soviet biography that notes the following. In September 1918, Lenin summoned a few leading comrades and told them roughly the following: "I note with deep satisfaction. I note with deep dissatisfaction that my person is being glorified. This is annoying and harmful. All of us know that personalities have nothing to do with it. It would be awkward for myself to prohibit that sort of thing. There would also be something ridiculous and pretentious about it. It is up to you to put the brakes on unobtrusively, or this other fact." Um, so let me quote this. Um, the commission collecting material on the history of the RCPB and the October Revolution decided to begin collecting exhibits for a Lenin museum. Lenin categorically forbade this and told Olminsky, who had reported the decision to him, "You can't imagine how unpleasant I find the constant promotion of my personality." So, not did only Lenin find personality cults unpleasant, he even said that they are annoying and harmful. So I believe that as Marxist-Leninists, we should recognize the threat of personality cults, that they're harmful, and that we should not allow them to exist, or at least greatly tone them down. And Khrushchev actually did not abolish Stone's personality cult. It technically existed until 1987 under Gorbachev. Khrushchev actually still continued to praise Stalin. If you want, I can give you the quote to that as well. So yeah, he continued to praise Stalin, and but he did tone down Stone's personality code by removing Stone statues and by renaming places and stuff like that. Comrade Hellas also mentioned that um Khrushchev lied in the secret speech. That's actually not true. Khrushchev in the secret speech talked about several things. Stalin's personality cult, the deportations of minorities, um, collaboration with the Yezhov, and the Doctor's plot. And the deportations were actually unjustified. Let me hear you. Let you hear me out. Um, Wait 1 second. Um, he let's give the deportation of Crimean Tatars as an example. In this deportation, there was the biggest amount of collaborators and fascists that betrayed the Soviet Union, and only 9.9, yes, 9.9% of the Crimean Tatars betrayed the Soviet Union. To quote Red Nations by Jeremy Smith, up to 20,000 Tatars had joined the Wehrmacht as volunteers, and others served in the local police force, denouncing partisans and communists and taking part in some atrocities. But these numbers were a small part of the overall population
Comrade King, I'm
that
sorry.
eventually.
See, I don't want to interrupt, but I don't think this is too important of a point. The deportations is something I think you should go into the Doctor's plot, because that's where the allegations of
Oh,
anti-Semitism.
okay, okay. We can also talk about the Doctor's plot as well. I'm fine with that.
Okay,
According
you're
to
going too deep into the deportations. I don't think it's too necessary.
well, okay, okay. Well, basically, in the Doctor's plot was fabricated according to a 1955 investigation, if I'm not mistaken. I could check 1 second. Yeah, it's from 1955, I think. Basically, according to this article by Britannica, the doctor spot was actually fabricated. So the doctors were actually innocent. Oh, just put it in the group chat. Here it is. Stone. I mean, Comrade also accused um Khrushchev of calling Stalin anti-Semitic. That's actually not true, and I'd like Comrade to show evidence of that. And he also mentioned that Khrushchev showed gulag camps to the west. That's also not true. I don't know where you're getting this from, but yeah, the archipelago was somehow smuggled into the west, but it was never published under Khrushchev. It was published in 1990 under Gorbachev. Anyway, Comrade also said that the the, the Khrushchev's claims destroyed the image of the USSR and of Stalin. Um, Khrushchev himself actually addressed this. Let me quote him. 1 second. Give me 10 seconds, please. Okay, there you go. I'll quote this biography from by William Taubman. Here it is. Yeah, I sent it in the group chat. He noted in his book "The Man and Khrushchev, the Man and His Era" the following: 3 weeks later, before 800 guests at a Chinese embassy reception, he declared. So by he means Khrushchev, declared that being a communist was inseparable from being a Stalinist, so that even though mistakes had been made in the struggle against the enemies of Marxism and Leninism, may God grant that every communist will be able to fight for the interest of the working class as Stalin fought. Communism's enemies had tried to exploit his criticism of Stalin's shortcomings to undermine the Soviet regime, but nothing will come out of this, gentlemen, any more than you will be able to see your ears without a mirror. Essentially, Khrushchev here says that you can't be a Marxist without being a Stalinist, which shows that he was very pro-Stalin. This is a gigantic middle finger to Trotskyist, leftcoms, and all these other revisionist ideologies. And he also defends Stalin here. You know, he says that Stalin just fought for working class interests, and I can quote him again later in this. He justified all of Stalin's crimes by just saying that those were failed attempts to protect the Soviet Union. And also, give me a second. Uh, is there something else, or I'm not sure.
All
Okay,
right.
Thank
I
you.
I
think
think
I
that will
think
be
that's all.
enough. I
Yeah.
I was led falsefully that this would be, let's say, a short an opening statement on that, but you made all your points. So I will continue now. The allegations of Stalin's anti-Semitism came from Nikita Khrushchev. Nikita
Can you give a
Khrushchev,
source,
of
please?
course, I'm gonna send you the source in the group chat. Meanwhile, I'm reading what he said. So, Nikita Khrushchev wrote in his memoirs that a hostile attitude towards the Jewish nation was a major shortcoming of Stalin. In his speeches and writings, as a leader and theoretician, there wasn't even a hint of this. God forbid that anyone assert that a statement by him smacked of anti-Semitism. Outwardly, everything looked correct and proper, but in his inner circle, when he had occasion to speak about some Jewish person, he always used an emphatically distorted pronunciation. This was the way backward people lacking in political consciousness would express themselves in daily life. People with a contemptuous attitude towards the Jews. They would deliberately mangle the Russian language, putting on a Jewish accent, imitating a certain negative characteristics attributed to the Jews. Stalin loved to do this and became one of his characteristic traits. Here we see the lies told by Khrushchev in his memoir. He also said that...
Can you post a quote, please?
Yes, I will paste the quote. He also made the allegations that Stalin frequently made anti-Semitic comments after World War II. Of course, these are all false and lying allegations. if we look up on Stalin's opinions on the Jews, we will find out that Stalin was in fact against all forms of discrimination. I want to inform the audience that Stalin's granddaughter, that will be from his first son, Svetlana Liluyeva, I believe. No, that was his daughter.
Yeah, that was his daughter.
His first son, Yakov, his first son, had his daughter, Galina Djugashvili. Galina Djugashvili was actually married to a Jewish man. So I don't think how Stalin, being anti-Semite, would accept a grandson-in-law to be of the Jewish race and beliefs. I'm sending another source in the group chat so you can see. Another proof of Stalin's tolerance towards the Jewish people is that his right hand and first deputy chairman of the Soviet Union, Lazar Kaganovich, was in fact of the Jewish nation, a member of the Jewish nation. This, of course, comes as a proof against the false allegations of Khrushchev. Furthermore, I would like to quote a quote from Stalin. National and racial chauvinism is a vestige of the misanthropic customs characterized of the period of cannibalism. Anti-Semitism, as an extreme form of racial chauvinism, is the most dangerous vestige of cannibalism. Anti-Semitism is of advance to the exploiters as a lightning conductor that deflects the blows aimed by the working people at capitalism. Anti-Semitism is dangerous to the toilers, for it is a false track which diverts them from the proper road and leads them into the jungle. Hence, communists as consistent internationalists cannot be irreconcilable and bitter enemies of anti-Semitism. Cannot but be. Excuse me. In the Soviet Union, anti-Semitism is strictly prosecuted as a phenomenon of hostile to the Soviet system. According to the laws of the Soviet Union, active anti-Semites are punished by death. This, of course, is a quote from Stalin, which was printed in the Jewish New Agency of the United States in the 12th January 1931. So we see that Khrushchev deliberately lies towards Stalin in his memoirs, calling him anti-Semite. Furthermore, you mentioned the Gulag Archipelago. I would like you to know that Nikita Khrushchev's secret speech on the personality cult and its consequences actually inspired Solzhenitsyn to work on Gulag Archipelago. It inspired Solzhenitsyn to make a book which, as you will find out, is not historically accurate, but a collection of tales and folklore stories from the Siberian frontier. Instead, this book was used as evidence of the so-called Soviet atrocities, which bear no truthful evidence. Furthermore, I would like to point out that Khrushchev was not a firm believer of the proletarian dictatorship. Khrushchev said that the working class...
Comrade Hallis, can you go into that a bit later so CK can respond to his points and then we could go into the bureaucracy and stuff?
Enough. So I will keep concentrating on... I will make one more statement about the secret speech, and I would like to mention... Excuse me, let me find my page. Right. I would like to mention that Khrushchev in the secret speech denounced Stalin, and he called him excessively rude, and at this defect we can be freely tolerated in our midst and in contacts amongst communists, becomes a defect which cannot be tolerated in one holding the position of Secretary General. He also said that Stalin acted not through persecution, explanation and patience, cooperation with the people, but imposing his concepts and demanding absolute submission to his opinion. This is, of course, false, because as we can see, in many instances, Stalin agreed to the demands of the Central Committee. We have an instance in 1952 that, if I'm correct, I might not be completely correct in this, that Marshal Georgy Zhukov had to persuade Stalin, and Stalin actually changed his plan according to military. Stalin also, as though accused by Trotskyists and Khrushchevite revisionists that was a dictator, formally declared his resignation no less than 3 times through his rule. 3 to 4 times in his rule, Stalin wished to resign from his position, but his resignation was not accepted by the Central Committee. Thus, Khrushchev calling Stalin a dictator, a foolhardy dictator, is completely wrong. Furthermore, we see here that Khrushchev says that Stalin he completely disagrees with him and calls him an enemy of the people. This is a grievous revisionist lies and does not obey any rules or principles of the Marxist-Leninist ideology. You can continue more on this subject. I'm sorry I took a while to speak, but you had also a quite large time.
So yeah, that's fine.
Let's wrap this up in 5-10 minutes, and let's move to another subject.
Okay. Anyway, you mentioned the Gulag Archipelago. I mean, sure. I mean, this secret speech might have influenced its writing. However, Khrushchev was not responsible for its writing itself. So it, although it might have indirectly influenced the book's writing, Khrushchev isn't to blame for this, because he isn't responsible for the actual writing, and he didn't publish it, because he disagreed with it, and that's good. And he also said that Khrushchev denounced Stalin and called him rude. That's actually not true. Khrushchev said that in Lenin's testament, Lenin called Stalin rude. That's actually true, but and Lenin's wife, Nadezhda Ulyanova, actually published Lenin's testament, so it was real. And okay, anyway, let me continue now. And Khrushchev actually said that Stalin changed later. After Lenin's testament, he became better, and that he praised him for that. And that's actually Khrushchev, supporting Stalin, and he didn't denounce Stalin. He even said in the secret speech, let me get the quote now. 1 second. Give me 10 seconds. Thank you. In the secret speech, he said the following. To quote him, "It is known that after Lenin's death, especially during the first years, Stalin actively fought for Leninism against the enemies of Leninist theory and against those who divided. Beginning with Leninist theory, the party, with its central committee at the head, started on a great-scale work on the socialist industrialization of the country, on agricultural collectivization, and on cultural revolution. At that time, Stalin gained great popularity, sympathy, and support. The party had to fight those who tried to lead the country away from the correct Leninist path. It had to fight Trotskyites. Zinovievites, and rightists and bourgeois nationalists. This fight was indispensable." So we see Khrushchev, praising Stalin. So he did not denounce him, and he said that Khrushchev said that that Stalin forced people to accept his ideals. Well, it's true that Stalin violated collective leadership after 1936. I mean, it's a fact. Before that,
can I interrupt here?
Yeah, sure. You can
do you see a similarity between Trotskyists and Khrushchev? because as implied, the so alleged testament of Lenin was actually not written by Lenin. We do not have any proof that it was written by Lenin. It is also very funny that a man who suffered from his third stroke was actually able to write such a statement, such elaborate scheme to dub on Stalin. And furthermore, the whole point is that the person who delivered the speech uh, to the Central Committee was actually Natalia Krupskeva, the wife of Lenin, who was known to have Trotskyist feelings and Trotsky and support for Trotskyists. It is quite hilarious that Khrushchev used this statement to smear on Stalin's legacy, because we do not know if it was actually based on any valid writing, or it was completely fabricated.
Okay, anyway, let me respond to this first, and then I can move on to Hela's other points from before. You said that there is similarity between Khrushchev and Trotsky. That's actually not true. Firstly, as I mentioned before, Khrushchev praised Stalin, and he supported Stalin. He even said that you can't be a Marxist if you're not a Stalinist. I mean, that's not you can't compare Khrushchev to what is it called, to Trotsky. That's impossible. And Khrushchev even called Trotskyites fascists, bourgeois nationalists, not bourgeois nationalists, but he called them anti-Leninists and revisionists. He called you can just read the secret speech. He called them anti-Leninists and revisionists. There, um, okay. Anyway, um, you also claim that that the that this that Lenin's testament isn't real. Well, actually, it is real because, as you know before, Lenin's wife herself published it. Why would Lenin's wife, lie about Lenin? And also, you said that Khrushchev used it to attack Stalin. I'd say actually the opposite, because Khrushchev said that the testament of Lenin actually made Stalin better. It made Stalin realize his mistakes, and so he became an even greater leader, according to Khrushchev. I think that this is actually very supportive of Khrushchev. Very very supportive of Stalin. And also you said that Khrushchev called Stalin a dictator. That's also not true. He said that Stalin's actions are not one of a bloody despot. In the secret speech, I mean, giddy despot in the secret speech. Let me actually quote him. 1 second here. Comrades, so as not to repeat errors of the past, the Central Committee has declared itself resolutely against the cult of the individual. We consider that Stalin was extolled to excess. However, in the past, Stalin undoubtedly performed great services to the party, to the working class, and to the international workers' movement. The question is complicated by the fact that all this, which we have just discussed, was during Stalin's life under his leadership and with his concurrence. Here, Stalin was convinced that this was necessary for the defense of the interests of the working classes against the plotting of enemies and against the attack of the imperialist camp. He saw this from the position of the interest of the working class, of the interest of the laboring people, of the interest of the victory of socialism and communism. We cannot say that these were the deeds of a giddy despot. He considered that this should be done in the interest of the party, of the working masses, in the name of defense of the revolution's gains. In this lies the whole tragedy. Okay. Anyway. Okay.
CK, I think we beat the secret speech part to the bag. Should we move on to the next point?
Okay. Can I make one more statement?
Alright, just finish the last statement, then we're moving on to the next point.
Okay. Hella said that Khrushchev called Stalin an enemy of the people. That's not true. He said that Stalin used the term enemy of the people on some innocent communists like Rudzutak, which died in the national operations of the NKVD. What? Okay, I'm done.
All right. The next subject, please, Huna. And let's keep it timed. Give us both
Okay.
like 3-4 minutes because this
Oh,
can be
okay.
tough.
Can I make one more statement?
No, you may not.
Alright.
Oops. Well,
Alright, we're
sure.
moving on to, okay, so, we did the secret speech, I think we beat that to the bag, we'll let the viewers decide that for themselves. Now, let's go on to foreign policy, specifically peaceful coexistence.
Okay.
Comrade Hellas, you made the opening statement last time, so Comrade King, you can make the opening statement this
Okay.
time.
Let's give us both like 3 to 4 minutes, and then we can continue.
Okay, I'm gonna put a timer on, I'm gonna give you 4 minutes.
Okay, so shall I start now?
1 minute, I'm starting a timer.
Okay, anyway.
Alright, start.
Okay. Anyway, I'd like to say first that peaceful coexistence is actually Stalin's idea, if not Lenin's. Stalin actually said in one of his works that that peaceful coexistence is possible. Let me show it to you. It's actually from volume 16 of his works. He said that peaceful coexistence of capitalism and communism is possible with mutual willingness to cooperate, ready to fulfill its obligations with respect for the principle of equality and non-interference in the internal affairs of other states. And actually, Khrushchev said the same. I mean, I think that since you told me to you know, say less stuff this time, I'll just give the word now to Comrade Hellas.
Okay, let me restart the timer. Comrade Hellas, you can start.
All right. Let's go with Khrushchev foreign policy. I would like to stress out that by no means did Stalin ever have the same meaning on what we call peaceful coexistence. In fact, Stalin was a great supporter of advancing socialism in a worldwide fashion. Let's give some quotations about Khrushchev first. Between the 20th and the 22nd Congress of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, Khrushchev's revisionist line of peaceful transition, peaceful coexistence, and peaceful competition became a complete system. He has been hawking this stuff everywhere as his new creation. Yet it is nothing new, but is merely rehashed and meretricious combination of broader right revisionism, the theory of structural reform, and Titoid revisionism. In international relations, Khrushchev revisionism practices capitulation to US imperialism. In the imperialist and capitalist countries, it practices capitulation to the reactionary ruling classes. In the socialist countries, it encourages the development of capitalist forces. Let's talk a bit about Khrushchev's foreign policy. Khrushchev was the leader of the Soviet Union when the Cuban Missile Crisis kicked in. And even though you can argue that in the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Soviet Union made a gambit placing nukes in Cuba and using that gambit to remove existing missiles in Turkey and Italy, nuclear warheads from the United States. Now, particularly this gambit actually played on the favor of the Soviet Union because they moved the missiles in Cuba and they made America remove theirs, which they gained something they didn't have. But the press and how Khrushchev portrayed it, it was a great foreign policy defeat of the Soviet Union. He made the Soviet Union seem weak, that they removed the missiles first, that they backed down under Soviet pressure, American pressure. That when the blockade of Cuba was enacted, the Soviet Union weren't able to help them and they backed down. This showed the Soviet Union to be weak in the worldwide press. And yes, as we know, there was a secret deal that Americans should remove their missiles too, but this wasn't shown in the press. Khrushchev thus backed down, and this, of course, costed him his premiership. We must.
I'm sorry to repeat that. You're lagging a bit.
All right. Can you hear me properly now?
Yes.
Okay, great. I would also like to mention that Khrushchev didn't believe in the proletarian dictatorship. Khrushchev was
Okay, wait, Comrade Hellas, before you get into the whole proletarian democracy and bureaucracy, let Comrade King respond to peaceful
okay.
coexistence, and then I will
Give
move on
me a
to
minute.
Okay, go ahead.
I will also stress out that under the signboard of peaceful coexistence, Khrushchev has been colluding with U.S. imperialism, wrecking the socialist camp and the international communist movement, opposing the revolutionary class struggles of the oppressed people and nations, practicing great power chauvinism and national egoism, and betraying the proletarian internationalism. All this is being done for the protection of the vested interests of a handful of people, which he places above the fundamental interests of the peoples in the Soviet Union, the socialist camp, and the whole world. Khrushchev surrendered the revolutionary theory in favor of doing American favors, and we see this is the start of the fake communism. Americans are an imperialist power, my audience. You know that. Americans are not going to change. They were imperialist, they are imperialist, they will be imperialist. What changed was the Soviet Union. Why did the Americans not view the Soviet Union anymore as a threat? Why did they invite Khrushchev for a kitchen debate? Why did Czech violinists play in Boston? Why did Hungarian swimmers go to America for the Olympic Games? Because the Soviet communism became a peaceful communism, a communism that wouldn't counteract and fight America on foreign policy. While Americans were bombing Vietnam, they invested in Poland. They made capitalist investments in a so-called socialist country. And of course, something final that must be stressed out, and excuse me for taking advantage of my time, but in Hungary, we have Khrushchev completely going against principles of national self-determination as put by the great socialist revolutionary Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, which he stressed the importance of national self-determination. The thanks in Budapest was a shame towards anything Leninist or Stalinist legacy of the Soviet Union. He imposed the will upon a sovereign people that were so-called allied to the Soviet Union. And this made a great division amongst Western communists because they started seeing the Soviet Union as dangerous, while before they loved the Soviet Union. They loved socialism. Khrushchev's great mistakes in the Cuban Missile Crisis and the crackdown in Budapest were detrimental to the Soviet prestige and the Soviet hegemony. At the same time, he advanced, he conducted in social imperialism and allowed the KGB to infiltrate allied countries of the Soviet Union. This is what I had to say about his foreign policy.
Can you repeat the last part about the allied countries thing?
He allowed the KGB to infiltrate allied countries. He cracked down on Hungary, an allied of the Soviet Union, a member of the Warsaw Pact. This is all I had to say on the foreign policy. You can continue.
Okay, can I get a bit more time since Hellas also...
I'll give you a bit more time, don't worry.
How much will I get?
I'll give you like, I don't know, a minute more.
Alright, anyway, you mentioned a lot, okay. Let me go through everything. You said that Stalin wanted to spread socialism around the world, whereas Khrushchev didn't. Actually, this is not true. Khrushchev also wanted to spread socialism around the world. He said in this quote here, wait, let me send it in the group chat. He said that external antagonism, can't be denied. Otherwise, you are not a Marxist. Okay, let me quote it. In advocating peaceful coexistence, we of course have no intention of saying that there are no contradictions between socialism and capitalism, that complete harmony can be established between them, or that it is possible to reconcile the communist and bourgeois ideologies. Such a viewpoint would be tantamount to retreating from Marxism-Leninism. The ideological differences are irreconcilable and will continue so. Anyway, let me respond to your next point. Okay, you said that Khrushchev had a weak foreign policy. Well, let me tell you what. Um, um, Stalin actually wanted to give the GDR to West Germany. What is this? Okay, let me give you a
He
link to
didn't
that.
want to give GDR to Western Germany. He wanted to unify Germany and then allow free elections to happen. This was Stalin's plan. He didn't want to
Here is
have.
his plan.
He made he
He
made a
wanted the
gambit
capital.
that thought that with the rise of communism in Western Europe and France and Italy electing communist governments, that Germany will also go through this path. That was Stalin's opinion. He was willing to gambit East Germany in favor of winning West as well.
You can read the article I just sent yourself. It's called Stalin Note. It's from
Yeah, I am.
Wikipedia.
I am. I'm aware of the Stalin's note. He proposed a unified Germany, having free elections, and he thought that the Communist Party will win. That was Stalin's gambit. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, I understand that he wanted free elections there, and that he thought can you give a source to him believing that the communists will win? He actually wanted a neutral, unified Germany, which is capitals. He wanted East Germany to go to West Germany. However, he didn't want this Germany to be part of NATO or anything like that. Anyway, let me continue. Um, uh, Responding to your next points, already technically replies to your peaceful coexistence. It's a capitulation to imperialism argument. So already replied to that and won't again. Um, and can you please give me proof of Khrushchev allowing capitalist influence in socialist countries? Because there were no, there was no foreign capital under Khrushchev or Brezhnev or something like that. And actually, I'd say that what happened in the Cuban Missile Crisis was justified because, Khrushchev didn't want nuclear war, and nuclear war was almost created. So this was justified because he didn't want nuclear war. And you also said that Khrushchev made capitalist investments in Poland. Please give a source to that as well. And you said that Khrushchev was invited to the US. Yes, that's true. He wanted to learn from the US there and make the Soviet Union stronger. Like, for example, through the corn campaign. I don't see a problem with it. He just wanted to, make the USSR better. And also, you said that he was a social imperialist. That's not true. In the Leninist sense, according to imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism by Lenin, social imperialism is socialism in words and imperialist capitalism in deeds. And he was not a capitalist and not an imperialist. However, we'll come to that later. Anyway, you also said that
Finish up this
Khrushchev.
last point, and then it's going back to Hellas.
Okay, sure. You said that Khrushchev opposed revolutions. That's actually not true. He said even that a revolution must happen. He denounced reformism. Actually, let me quote him, or you can just show the screen. I don't know how you're recording this. Anyway, here it is. Our enemies like to depict us, so I'm quoting Khrushchev now. Our enemies like to depict us Leninists as advocates of violence, always and everywhere. True, we recognize the need for the revolutionary transformation of capital society into socialist society. It is this that distinguishes the revolutionary Marxists from the reformists, the opportunists. There is no doubt that in a number of capitalist countries, the violent overthrow of the dictatorship of the bourgeoisie and the sharp aggravation of class struggle connected with this are inevitable. But the forms of social revolution vary. It is not true that we regard violence and civil war as the only way to remake society. It will be recalled that in the conditions that arose in April 1917, Lenin granted the possibility that the Russian Revolution might develop peacefully. Leninism teaches us that the ruling classes will not surrender their power voluntarily, and the greater or lesser degree of intensity which the struggle may assume the use of or the non-use of violence in the transition to socialism depends on the resistance of the exploiters, on whether the exploiting class itself resorts to violence rather than on the proletariat. In this connection, the question arises of whether it is possible to go over to socialism by using parliamentary means. No such course was open to the Russian Bolsheviks. Since then, however, the historical situation has undergone radical changes, which make possible a new approach to the question. The forces of socialism and democracy have grown immeasurably throughout the world, and capitalism has become much weaker. In these circumstances, the working class, by relying itself around itself, the working peasantry, the intelligentsia, all patriotic forces, and resolutely repulsing the opportunist elements who are incapable of giving up the policy of compromise with the capitalists and landlords, it is in a position to defeat the reactionary forces opposed to the interests of the people, to capture a stable majority in parliament and transform the latter from an organ of bourgeois democracy into a genuine instrument of the people's will. In the countries where capitalism is still strong and has huge military and police apparatus at its disposal, the reactionary forces will, of course, inevitably offer a serious resistance. The transition to socialism will be attended by a sharp class revolutionary struggle. Whatever the form of transition to socialism, the decisive and indispensable factor is the political leadership of the working class headed by its vanguard. Without this, there can be no transition to socialism. I'll send a link in the stream chat as well. Essentially, he says that we always need a revolution. However, a revolution can be peaceful or violent, and Marx, Engels, and Stone actually said the same. I can quote them later if you want. I'll hand over the thing now to Hellas.
Alright, thank you. I will carry on from here. A great proof of Khrushchev, who was a disciple of Bernstein and Kautsky, is that in the 20th Congress of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, Khrushchev put forward the road of peaceful transition to socialism by the parliamentary road, which is diametrically opposed to the road of the October Revolution. So, Khrushchev said that the working class, by rallying around itself to the toiling peasantry, the intelligentsia, all patriotic forces, and resolutely repulsing the opportunist elements who are incapable of giving up the policy of compromise with the capitalists and landlords, is a position to defeat the reactionary forces opposed to the popular interests, to capture a stable majority in the parliament. I'm sending sources right now to the group chat. Khrushchev maintains that if the proletariat can win a majority in parliament, this is itself will amount to the seizure of state power.
Can I
No, because I'm talking.
Well, can I interrupt, please, for a second?
If it's for a second.
Okay. He in the quote I sent, he also said that if the bourgeoisie resist, then the revolution has to be violent. So he's just saying okay. Marx's quotes. This is not revisionist. Anyway,
let us continue here. Let us continue here and show the revisionism of Khrushchev. Khrushchev holds that the proletariat can win a stable majority in a parliament under the bourgeois dictatorship and under the bourgeois electoral laws. He says that this is in capitalist countries, that the working class. He also believes that if the proletariat can win a majority in parliament, this is itself will amount to the seizure of state power and smashing the bourgeoisie state machinery. He states that the working class will win a majority in the parliament. This is Khrushchev's words, okay? And transform it into an organ of people's power. Given a powerful revolutionary movement in the country means smashing the military bureaucratic machine of the bourgeoisie and setting up a new proletarian people's state in parliamentary form. He also believes that if the proletariat can win a stable majority in the parliament, this is itself will enable to realize that the socialist transformation of society. He says that the winning of a stable parliamentary majority could create for the working class a number of capitalist and former colonial countries the conditions needed to secure fundamental social changes. I'm quoting Khrushchev as well. The present situation offers the working class in a number of capitalist countries the real opportunity to unite an overwhelmingly majority of the people under the leadership and to secure the transfer of the basic means of production into the hands of the people. To the program of the Soviet Union, he maintains that the working class of many countries can, even before capitalism is overthrown, compel the bourgeoisie to carry out measures that transcend ordinary reforms. The program even states that under the bourgeois dictatorship, it is possible for a situation to emerge in certain countries in which it would be preferable for the bourgeoisie to agree the basic means of production being purchased from. As we can see, this goes against Leninism, which Lenin said, the Bernsteinians accepted and accept Marxism minus its directly revolutionary aspect. They do not regard the parliamentary struggle as one of the weapons particularly suitable for definite historical periods, but as the main and almost the sole form of struggle, making forced seizure dictatorship unnecessary. And now okay, I'm going on one more quote. Only scoundrels or simpletons can think that the proletarian must win the majority in elections carried out under the yoke of the bourgeoisie, under the yoke of wage slavery, and that it should win power afterwards. This is the height of folly or hypocrisy. It is substituting voting under the old system and with the old power of class struggle and revolution. We can name countless examples of Lenin disagreeing with Khrushchev on the democratic procedure. Let's find another source. If you give me a minute. Right. Here. Khrushchev revisionism has deep historical and social roots and bears the imprint of times. As Lenin said, opportunism is no accident, no sin, no sleep, no betrayal on the part of individual persons, but the social product of the whole historical epoch. And here we see that Khrushchev declared the process of proletarian dictatorship obsolete. He believed that there is no need to be a class.
Okay, we see Comrade Hellas, Comrade King. Hellas, finish your. This is your last point. Then, CK, I know you want to respond. You can respond after.
Just 1 second. We are talking about peaceful coexistence for now and peaceful transition to socialism, not about state of the whole people. That's a separate topic that we can talk about later.
Yeah, if we're gonna go into like the whole bureaucracy instead of the whole people stuff, please hold that off. I think we're gonna do that after, like, okay, should we do economy next or bureaucracy next?
Yeah, because we will just cause even more arguments.
Yeah, so should we? Okay, so Comrade House, finish your last point. Please continue.
Okay, I will make one last statement that Khrushchev believed in peaceful coexistence and that the notion that the Soviet Union could have peacefully non-antagonistic relations with the capitalist imperialist powers. He did not have to foment violent revolutionary struggle and would instead compete with the capitalist nations to show the strength of socialism. Khrushchev lied about this because he believed that the Soviet Union is going to surpass the United States economically. And he failed to give on his promise. In fact, his economic policies, as we will see in the future, were completely destructive. You can give the nod to Comrade King now for a few minutes.
Okay. Before I let CK go, you want to respond to what he just said, right, CK?
Yeah, sure. But
okay, wait. So I just want to be ready. After this, should we go into the bureaucracy or economy?
Okay. Can we talk about the state of the whole people?
Okay. Sure. CK, respond to what he just said, and then we'll move on to state of the whole people.
Okay, anyway, you said that Khrushchev denied external antagonism. I already debunked that already. I don't know why you are saying this again, because Khrushchev himself said that if you deny external antagonism as a Marxist-Leninist, then you are not a Marxist-Leninist. You also said that peaceful revolution is the only way to achieve socialism to Khrushchev. Actually, that's not true. Peaceful revolution it can be a way to achieve socialism. To Khrushchev, keyword can. But however, it's not the only way to him. Khrushchev believed that violent revolution is also a means to achieve socialism, and he said that if peaceful revolution isn't possible, then the only way to achieve socialism is violent revolution. And uh, so he said that if the bourgeoisie resist, then the violent revolution is necessary, and I pointed out that before already. Um, yeah. This is actually the same as what Stalin, Marx, and Engels said. Actually, let me quote Stalin. Stalin said in a letter to the CPGB leader Harry Pollitt on the draft of the party's British Road to Socialism on September 28th, 1950, the following: the draft of the program correctly puts forward the task of utilizing the traditional English institutions, Parliament, in the struggle for socialism. It is well known that the English communists are being accused that they will establish Soviet power in England. Hence, it is imperative that in the draft of the program it should be very clearly and definitely stated that the English communists are not going to delegitimize Parliament, that England shall come to power, shall come to socialism through its own path and not through Soviet power, but through people's democracy that would be guided by people's power and not by capitals. Stalin here says that the British communists should achieve socialism via electoralism. So, are you calling Stalin a revisionist as well? No. I'm curious about that. Anyway, Marx and Engels actually were saying the same as well. Okay, are you also calling Marx and Engels revisionists now? Anyway, in the preface to Capital Volume 1, Engels said that Marx led to the conclusion that, at least in Europe, England is the only country where the inevitable social revolution might be effected entirely by peaceful and legal means. He certainly never forgot to add that he hardly expected the English ruling classes to submit without a pro-slavery rebellion to this peaceful and legal revolution. Further, in the parliamentary debate on the anti-socialist law, Marx said the following: the objective in the case under consideration is the emancipation of the working class and the revolution transformation of society implicit therein, and historical development can remain peaceful only for so long as
Let him
it
finish this point.
yeah, okay. Only for so long as its progress is not forcibly obstructed by those wielding social power at the time. If in England, for instance, or the United States, the working classes were to gain a majority in Parliament or Congress, they could, by lawful means, rid themselves of such laws and institutions as impeded by their development, though they could only do so insofar as society has reached a sufficiently mature development. However, the peaceful movement might be transformed into a forcible one by resistance on the part of those interested in restoring the former state of affairs, if, as in the American Civil War and French Revolution, they are put down by force. It is as rebels against lawful force. Essentially, Marx says here that peaceful revolution is possible. However, if the bourgeoisie resist, then violent revolution is inevitable. And Khrushchev said the same as I said before. Anyway, I'd like to address, I think, one more
I'm quite
point.
worried that you are literally monopolizing my own stream. And
Yeah, no, the one.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
all
yeah,
right,
no, just
I
let him
will.
Okay,
finish.
can I
First of
say
all,
one more
I would
short
like to
sentence?
address some of Khrushchev's lies. Khrushchev lied extensively about Stalin because I will go very shortly. He spoke about the cult of personality, while Stalin himself wrote that he hates the cult of personality, which you also quoted. That was a terrible lie against the cult of personality that supposedly Stalin had. Another lie is that Khrushchev quoted the Lenin's testament, which is a fabricated. It is a fabricated creation of Natalia Krupskaya, the wife of Lenin, and follows Trotskyite anti-Stalinist conspiracies theories. Let's go on furthermore. We can see here that Khrushchev actually lied about the term enemy of the people, because the term enemy of the people, l'ennemi du peuple, it comes from the French Revolution. It was used by Jean-Paul Marat. It does not originate from Stalin. He also says that Stalin neglected the party, but he says that Stalin never called any Congress, and that actually Stalin called a Congress in 1947 and 1948. We have countless of examples of Khrushchev lies being debunked, but sadly, since you monopolized my discussion, I wasn't able to mention any of them. So let's forget everything that has been said, and let's go more on the state of the people right now.
Okay, if you're going to argue about the state of the whole people and the bureaucracy,
Yes.
last time Comrade King had his opening statement.
Okay.
Comrade Hallis, this is your turn now.
Oh, I will start? Okay,
Yeah, last
very
time Comrade King started, so you can start now.
good. Very good. Right. So, again, in the 22nd Congress of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, Khrushchev openly raised the banner of opposition to the dictatorship of the proletariat, announcing the replacement of the state of the dictatorship with the proletariat by the state of the whole people. This was actually written in the program of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, that the dictatorship of the proletariat has ceased to be indispensable in the Soviet Union, and that the state, which arose as a state of the dictatorship of the proletariat, has, in the new contemporary stage, become the state of the entire people. This, of course, as you can understand, he abolished the dictatorship of the proletariat. He went against Marxist-Leninist principles. Anyone with little knowledge of Marxist-Leninism knows that the concept of the state is a class concept. Lenin pointed out that, I am quoting Lenin, quote, "The distinguishing feature of the state is the existence of a separate class of people in whose hands power is concentrated," unquote. Khrushchev announced the abolition of dictatorship of the proletariat and in the Soviet Union, and advanced the thesis of the state of the whole people. He demonstrated that he replaced the Marxist-Leninist teachings on the state by the bourgeois falsehoods. When Marxist-Leninists criticized these fallacies, the revisionist Khrushchev quickly hastily defended themselves and tried to invent a so-called theoretical basis for the state of the whole people. They now assert that the historical period of dictatorship of the proletariat, mentioned by Marx and Lenin, refers only to the transition of the capitalism to the first stage of communism and not to the higher stage. They further assert that the dictatorship of the proletariat will cease to be necessary before the state withers away, and that after the end of the dictatorship of the proletariat there is yet another stage, the state of the whole people. Of course, this was never said. Marx and Lenin said. Now I will quote Lenin. In the critique of the Goethe problem, Marx wrote, "Between the capitalist and communist society lies the period of the revolutionary transformation of the one into the other." This comes by Marx. There corresponds to this is also a political transition period in which the state can become nothing but revolution dictatorship of the proletariat. Up to now, this axiom has never been disputed by socialists, and yet it implies that the recognition of the existence of the state right up to the time when the victorious socialist has grown into a complete communism. And now let's quote Lenin. The essence of Marx's teachings on the state has been mastered only by those who understand that the dictatorship of a single class is necessarily not only for the proletariat, which has been overthrown, the bourgeoisie, but also for the entire historical period which separates capitalism from classless society from communism. So according to Marx and Lenin, while we transition to communism, the dictatorship of the proletariat must remain intact. Of course, Khrushchev has abolished the dictatorship of the proletariat in favor of the state of the new people. So we can see, let's find a quote of Khrushchev. Here. Here, Khrushchev actually quoted a statement that actually contradicts his own opinions on the state of the whole people. In our country, the first two periods referred to by Lenin, in the opinion quoted already, belong to history. In the Soviet Union, a state of whole people, a communist state system, the state of the first phase of communism, has arisen and is developing. We can see that this is by Khrushchev. He is building a new Soviet Union that abolishes the dictatorship of the proletariat. So Khrushchev believed that he divided the Soviet Union into three periods. First stage is the bourgeois society. The state is needed by the bourgeoisie, the bourgeois state. The second state, in the period of transition from capitalism to communism, the state needed by the proletariat, the state of the dictatorship of the proletariat. This is excessively pointed out by Marx. In order to go from the first stage, which is the bourgeois society, to the second stage, which is dictatorship of the proletariat, and finally the third stage, the communist society, the state is not necessary, it withers away. This is based on the Marxist ideology, and Khrushchev, abolishing the dictatorship of the proletariat, he destroyed any possible construction of communism in the Soviet Union, because he allowed a clique or a white collar, a group of white collar people to take power in the Soviet Union and create a new labor aristocracy. And all these reforms from Khrushchev on the political level allowed for the destruction of the dictatorship of the proletariat, for the rise of a new class, as an inner party class, a white collar class that didn't exist before. And of course, it led to the stagnation and gerontocracy in the latest years. Old people ruling.
Can we talk about the stagnation and stuff later? Because that's
of course, I just mentioned it that it was actually Khrushchev who allowed this to happen, and it fell to his successors to it fell to his successors. Finally, I would actually like to quote another statement here. This is from Nikita Sergeyevich. No. I'm quoting about the state of the people. Something final that will prove his revisionism. Nikita Sergeyevich Khrushchev in 1961 said, in arguing for the state of the whole people, he said here that the state of the whole people can democracy be further developed into turning genuine democracy for the whole people. He said that the abolition of the dictatorship of the proletariat exemplifies a line of energetically developing democracy, and that proletarian democracy is becoming socialist democracy of the whole people.
Are you done with your point?
I think I'm pretty much done, and okay, I will make one last statement, 30 seconds. So,
okay, go.
Khrushchev has abolished the dictatorship of the proletariat in the Soviet Union and has established a dictatorship of the revisionist clique, headed by himself. That is a dictatorship of the privileged stratum of the Soviet bourgeoisie. Actually, in the state of the whole people, it is not a state of the dictatorship of the proletariat, but a state in which his small revisionist clique wield their dictatorship over the masses of the workers, the peasants and revolution intellectuals. Under the rule of Khrushchev clique, there is no democracy for the Soviet working people. There is no democracy only for the handful of people belonging to the revisionist Khrushchev clique, for the privileged stratum, and for the bourgeoisie elements. All the new Khrushchev democracy for the whole people is nothing but out-and-out bourgeois democracy, a despotic dictatorship of the Khrushchev clique over the Soviet people. In the Soviet Union today, anyone who persists in the proletarian stud, upholds Marxist-Leninism, and has the courage to speak out, resist, or fight, is watched, followed, summoned, and even arrested, imprisoned, or diagnosed as mentally ill, and is sent to mental hospitals. Recently, the Soviet press had declared that it is necessary to fight against those who show even the slightest dissatisfaction, and called for relentless battle against the rotten jokers, who are not so bold as to make sarcastic remarks about Khrushchev's agricultural policy. It is not particularly astonishing that the revisionist Khrushchev clique should have, on more than one occasion, bloodily suppressed the striking workers and masses who put up resistance. The formula of abolishing the dictatorship of the proletariat, keeping a state of the whole people, reveals that the secrets of the revisionist Khrushchev clique, that is, they are firmly opposed to the dictatorship of the proletariat, but will not give up state power till their doom. Finally, the revisionist Khrushchev clique knows the paramount importance of controlling state power. They need it for clearing away the restoration of capitalism in the Soviet Union. They are Khrushchev's real aims in raising the banners of the state of the whole people and democracy for the whole people. I think this will be enough.
Alright, Comrade King, you can have your point now. I'll give you
thank you.
since Hala spoke for a bit, I'll give you 5 minutes. CK.
Okay, anyway, I'd like to address that state of the whole people was actually Stalin's idea. In the draft constitution of the USSR in 1936, Stalin said the following: "Unlike bourgeois constitutions, the draft of the new constitution of the USSR proceeds from the fact that there are no longer any antagonistic classes in society. That society consists of two friendly classes, of workers and peasants. That it is these classes, the laboring classes, that are in power. That the guidance of society by the state is in the hands of the working class, the most advanced class in society. That the constitution is needed for the purpose of consolidating a social order desired by and beneficial to the working people." Further, he also says the same a bit later. As to freedom for various political parties, we adhere to somewhat different views. A party is a party of a class, its most advanced part. Several parties, and consequently freedom for parties, can exist only in a society in which there are antagonistic classes whose interests are mutually hostile and irreconcilable, in which there are, say, capitalists and workers, landlords and peasants, kulaks and poor peasants, etc. But in the USSR there are no longer such classes as the capitalists, the landlords, the kulaks, etc. In the USSR there are only two classes, workers and peasants, whose interests, far from being mutually hostile, are on the contrary friendly. Hence, there is no ground in the USSR for the existence of several parties, and consequently for freedom for these parties. Also, he said in 1938, according to Eric von Rie's book, The Political Thought of Joseph Stalin, that there was no dictatorship of the proletariat anymore in 1938. Let me quote Eric von Rie. From a practical point of view, the 1936 Constitution's failure to claim an exclusively proletarian character reflected the new reality of the introduction of general and equal suffrage, which brought positive discrimination in favor of the urban working class to an end. The proletarian dictatorship, for what it had been worth, was in practice thereby abolished. According to Molotov, Stalin admitted privately that the proletarian dictatorship was a thing of the past. In his speech of the 1st of October 1938, the latter observed that in its first class stage, the proletarian state served to oppress the bourgeoisie. Soviet power was now in a second stage, when power becomes the power of the tallest. I won't say that it is now a class power, that it is the power of one class. And this actually corresponds with Khrushchev. He said in the 22nd Congress of the CPSU that there is no class antagonism in the USSR anymore, and that there are only two classes now, workers and peasants. 1 second.
Pausing his timer, 1 minute.
Okay, anyway, let me quote him. The power of our society and state in connection with the growth of the dictatorship of the proletariat into a nation-state isn't only weakening, but on the contrary, it rapidly increases, because to the old sources of our power are added new sources. Alongside with the constant increase of economic potential, the social base of our state has grown stronger and expanded. Society has become one and monophilic, like it has never been before, and this is the main source of power of the state. Every worker, every peasant, every intelligentsia can say, "We are the state." Its politics, is our politics. The task to develop and strengthen the state, the task to protect it from all kinds of encroachments. This is our common task. Standing ovation. But why is the state actually kept, although the main thing that gave birth to it, which is class antagonism, is gone? The reason is that it has not yet exhausted the tasks that society can only solve with the help of the state. These tasks and the functions of our social state are clearly defined in the draft program of our party. Khrushchev said this in the 22nd Congress of the CPSU. He essentially said that class antagonism was abolished, just like Stalin, and that there are only workers and peasants in the USSR now. How can there be a dictatorship of the bourgeoisie if there are no bourgeoisie? I don't understand this. And Stalin
Actually, Khrushchev allowed the private ownership of housing and small-scale farming.
We'll talk about that later. We are
for-
talking about economics right now.
I just want to
Okay,
mention one thing. Even Stalin
But
allowed that, so
no,
that's not
he
really
did not.
much of
He
it.
did not.
Yes,
Under,
he did. It
under
was
Stalin,
guaranteed.
no,
It
he
was
did not.
guaranteed in the
Under
Constitution
Stalin,
of the
there were
Soviet Union. That's one thing I'll
Under,
give you,
under
Comrade
Stalin,
King, on.
100% of the property was state-owned.
That's no. It was
No,
guaranteed in
listen,
the
listen.
Constitution. The
100
so what?
1930
Okay,
Constitution.
Arfuna,
guaranteed-
can I say something?
That's one thing I want to say.
Okay, give me a second. Let Comrade King speak, and I will debunk you.
Go ahead.
Okay,
CK.
anyway, there were 114,000 private enterprises under Stalin, okay, in 1953. He said that class antagonism was abolished in 1936. Actually, let me show you the article which says so. 1 second. Wait 1 second. Also, sorry, can you hear me now? Can you still hear me? Okay, anyway. What?
Okay, never mind. Since you're not going to say anything more, I would like
No,
to
I
say
will. I
that...
will say something more.
Okay.
Okay. Here's also the source. There are being 114,000 private enterprises under Stalin in 1953. I sent them in the group chat, and you said that there was no collective leadership under Khrushchev. That's actually not true. He restored it. He restored collective leadership around after around 1956 or 1957. And he continued collective leadership. And also, I'd also like to mention that the bureaucracy actually decreased under Khrushchev. According to Albert Zimansky's book, Is the Red Flag Flying, page 90, the only 80, it might have been page 88, I'm not sure, either page 88 or page 90. Basically, Albert Zimansky said there that only 85% of the CPSU consisted of, 85% of the CPSU consisted of white-collar workers in 1952 under Stalin, and only 15% of the party consisted of workers and peasants. Under Khrushchev, that changed actually. If you look in the book, you'll see that the amount of the amount of workers and peasants in the party increased under Khrushchev and Brezhnev. In 1961, only 48% of the party consisted of white-collar workers, compared to 85% in 1952, and under Brezhnev in 1976, only 44.5% of the party consisted of white-collar workers. Okay, now we can move on to your point.
What do you want to say? Siko?
Yeah.
Siko. Okay, there he is.
Hey. Alright, so the Constitution of the Soviet Union explains that the socialist system of economy and the socialist ownership of the means of instruments of production, firmly established as a result of the abolition of the capitalist system of economy and the abrogation of the private ownership of the means and instruments of production, and the abolition of the exploitation by man by man, constitute the economic foundation of the Soviet Union.
Yeah, and Article 9 of the 1936 Constitution says, alongside the socialist system of economy, which is the predominant form of economy in the USSR, the law permits the small private economy of individual peasants and handicraftsmen based on their personal labor, including the exploitation of labor of others. This is the private plot which existed under Stalin, which CK mentioned with the private
Not
enterprises.
just private plots.
Under Stalin, 19%,
actual private
99% of
enterprises
the 99%.
Also,
of,
collective farms weren't state property. Cooperative property is still a form of market
wait.
property.
You're
Yeah, it's
referring
market.
to sovkhoz and kolkhoz.
I'm referring to the collective farms. Yes, those weren't state-owned.
They were owned by the people of.
They were cooperative owned, unlike
yes.
the industrial sector.
Yes.
Yeah, that's still...
This is the aim of communism, to create a collective ownership of farmlands. It was not owned by a single man, but a group of people.
Yeah, this is a distinguishing form of ownership, which is different from the state ownership in the industrial sectors. There's a reason why collectivization happened and not outright nationalization. One of the main splits between the left and right opposition was on the question of collectivization, alongside other things pertaining to the NEP. Since you had the right opposition who wanted the kulaks to reign, you had the left opposition who wanted to nationalize the farms. Not even collectivization. There's a distinction between collectivization and nationalization. Collectivization gave the ownership of the farmland to cooperatives, which operated as markets within the agricultural sector, while nationalization would put them under the control of the state sector and full state planning, which was never fully realized under Stalin. So there is a distinguishment between the planning you had under the state sector and the form of economy we had in the agricultural sector.
You're on technical terms, you're correct, but of course, about 91% of agricultural land became collectivized under Stalin.
Yeah, most of it
did. You may argue against nationalization, but I'm not arguing in favor of nationalization.
Wait, how much was that? How much?
I'm telling you that collectivization is, in fact, one of the principles of communism. It doesn't go against communism at all.
Can I respond to this? Actually, only 60% was collectivized.
No, this is completely wrong. According to my data.
No, this is not wrong. You can read. You can read.
Okay, we have conflicting data now. Post your sources. This is conflicting now.
Okay, 1 second.
According to my data, 99.8% of all land was.
What source are you using here?
Here we go. Socialistice zeskloje quo. I cannot read Russian. Whatever.
That's not Russian actually. This is in English. This is a book by David.
The quoted source is in Russian.
Okay, nice.
The one I sent you.
The percent of farmsteads in collective farms. Well, actually, yeah, that's in 1940. But they decollected Hitler when Hitler took a lot of Soviet land. He decollectivized it, and later they didn't really ever collectivize them back. There were private farming plots, but those aren't revisionist. Private farming plots have no exploitation or anything like that. Well, anyway, continue.
Yes. Alright, so I think this is a good way. We got State of the Whole P plot, or do you want to guys continue that, or did you finish that already?
No, what you can see, 99.8% of the land was collectivized under Stalin, but under Khrushchev, a third of the house were private under Khrushchev, which proves that Khrushchev had plans to...
Wait, how much was private? Can you repeat again?
A third of the housing.
Household plots, you mean?
Yeah, a third of them. And also Khrushchev, let me find the quote.
Yeah, again, but under Stalin, already 40% of agriculture was done by...
Under Stalin, I sent you the source here. 99.8% were in collective use by 1940.
Cool, and I also have the 50. I also have like 1953 and yeah, in 1937 you can look in the thing there. You can see that there were far more private farming plots. But
Where?
like, okay, what?
Yeah, but I told you by 1940. In your book, it says that by 1937, the conditions of socialized sector were good indeed, privately open in the produce 52%, blah blah blah. I don't see how this is capitalism here. What you posted.
Well, but even your source says that 1990.8 per. I didn't say capitalism. And I don't see your point. Even on the even in 1940, 1998 point. Wait, 1990.
99.
1999, yeah, 1999.8% was according to your source collective farms. There were still private farming plots, although Stalin said in 1936 already that class antagonism was abolished, that kulaks were abolished, and so on. Private farming plots are not, capitalist. Even though after World War II there were far more
No,
private
because
farming plots, that doesn't mean anything.
Under Lenin's decree, all of the land had to be collectivized. So, since
That wasn't
Well,
Lenin's
That
well,
was
decree.
actually, can I
that
reply
was
to
Lenin's
that as
decree.
well?
That wasn't Lenin. Actually, Lenin had land redistribution under
Okay,
war
the
communism.
decree of land written by Vladimir Lenin was passed by the Second All-Russian Congress of the Soviet Workers and Soldiers Deputies on 8 November
Wait, what's the
1917.
decree called?
The decree on land. And Lenin,
When was it passed?
1917, 8 November. And Lenin states that
Here
private
it
ownership
is.
of land shall be abolished forever. Land shall not be sold, purchased, leased, mortgaged, or otherwise alienated. All lands, whether state, crown, monastery, church, factory, entail, private, public, peasant, etc., shall be confiscated without compensation and become the property of the whole people. Thus, collectivization, not nationalization. Because you argued with me on technical terms, but he speaks property of the whole people. That's collectivization, right? And pass into the use of all those who cultivate it. Persons who suffer by this property revolution shall be deemed to be entitled to public support only for the period necessary for adaptation to new conditions of life.
This was early amended by the 1922 Land Code, though.
When was that signed?
1922 Land Code.
Okay, let me see.
Can I also comment on that?
Go ahead, CK.
Okay, 1 second. Stalin and Khrushchev both wanted to destroy all private farming plots, but they never really did that. It didn't work. It failed. This kind of shows.
Wait, come again?
Practice kind of shows what. So Stalin and Khrushchev and even Brezhnev later all tried to abolish private farming plots, but they all failed. You can't really abolish them, as practice shows. I mean, like, Lenin did a lot of theoretical mistakes. He said, for example, that you can't have socialism under the dictatorship of the proletariat. So
Well, this
by the
is
way,
something even Marx said, so...
yeah, I mean, like, even if you claim that state of the whole people is revisionist,
I mean, like, I remember since Comrade Hollis quoted Critique of the Gotha program, which is a
Yes.
pamphlet I've read pretty extensively. Marx uses communism and socialism interchangeably, so when Marx speaks of the withering away of the state, he means it for all phases of communist society, including lower phase communism.
Yeah,
and, like,
can I please say something?
Like, how can the dictatorship of the proletariat exist under socialism if the proletariat doesn't exist under socialism? Because that
was a question aimed to Comrade King? Are you referring to me, or are you asking me or Comrade King?
I think he's asking you.
One sec, my microphone died, sorry. There's like one thing I was saying, like, how can the proletariat exist under socialism if there's no wage labor? Since wage labor is what necessitates the proletarian bourgeois class dynamic.
Okay.
So
is this aimed towards me or Comrade King?
I mean, let's go over a general question.
But since there was even a tiny fraction of private ownership, then the bourgeois elements were still inside the Soviet Union. And you may disagree on wage labor, but there was still a form of wage labor of workers being paid with money by the state.
Yeah, of
Under
course.
Khrushchev,
Yeah.
we moved forward to a state capitalist system in which the state replaced the capitalists and acted as the capitalists. Socialism in the Soviet Union was abolished and never reached. Communism was never reached in the Soviet Union.
Okay, can I comment now?
Well, you can
If
say
you
the same thing about Stalin's Soviet Union, since there was always
okay.
wages
Anyway,
being
can I comment
paid.
now, please?
No,
Yeah,
because
go ahead,
under
Stegan.
under Stalin and extensively, Stalin instructed the Soviet democracy and council communism. This means that the power of in a factory where its workers will decide what to produce after consulting the central planning committee. Under Stalin, the worker, you were 2 steps ahead of becoming a member of the Politburo. But under Khrushchev, we have the bureaucracy, and you may argue all you want with false statistics that there were imaginarily more white-collar workers under Stalin, which is false, of course. But
Dude, that's your
even if so,
source.
no, even if so was
Yes,
right,
you used that
okay,
source
even
before.
even if this was right, we must look on how the mode of production worked under Stalin, and Stalin had general plans on advancing to full-on communism in the upcoming decades.
When CK left, he disconnected.
Something that Khrushchev denied. Alright, since Comrade King left, you can ask me some questions.
No, he's gonna be back in a minute, so,
You can ask me some questions, keep the audience entertained.
1 minute. Well, right now I guess we're arguing about economy, and well, you're continuing about the argument of the state of the whole people, it seems, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think how we should go is, like, you can finish this up, then we could go on to economy. Sound good?
Of course, I'm going to reply to comments right now.
Okay, well, CK is back.
Okay, what was Comrade Hella saying?
He didn't say much.
Okay, anyway, by the way, if you think that the dictatorship of the proletariat existed after 1936, then you're saying that the USSR was capitalist.
How was it capitalist?
Because Lenin said that the dictatorship of the proletariat cannot exist under socialism.
Mm-hmm.
So you're basically...
No, how was the Soviet Union capitalist? I don't understand this.
I didn't say that it was, but I said that
no.
Lenin said...
In the Soviet Union, there was the dictatorship of the proletariat. And the dictatorship of the proletariat is, according to Marx, the transition between capitalism and communism. And the Soviet Union was a worker state in transition. And this was allowed because of the proletarian dictatorship that allowed the working classes to take power and control. And not the bourgeois elements.
Listen. Khrushchev himself said that a dictatorship of the proletariat under class struggle is necessary, but according to Stalin, class struggle and all capitalist elements were already abolished in 1946. Lenin said that Lenin said that under a dictatorship of the proletariat, there can't exist socialism. I can name you the name of the work in which he said so. He said so in Economics and Politics in the Era of the Dictatorship of the Proletariat. What?
Yeah, no, I thought you were gonna quote State and Revolutions. That's his most substantiated work on the dictatorship of the proletariat. But yeah, that work also goes into the proletariat state.
Yeah.
Yeah, because since if we're going by Marxist standards, communism and socialism are the same thing. He uses the terms interchangeably. Lowercase communism is what we call socialism, which Lenin clarifies in the State and Revolution. He specifically says
Lenin breaks it apart. But
I don't think it was Lenin. It was the Mensheviks who started the trend, but Lenin officialized it
Lenin
for clarity.
put it on paper because Lenin studied Marx's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I say something to that? Lenin actually also used low stage and high stage communism more or less interchangeably. He said he had the same.
No, he distinguished it, didn't he?
Yeah, Engels also distinguished it. However, he also
all of them did.
Yeah, but they.
No, the issue is that under Marx, communism is more like a political term because they needed something to differentiate themselves from
Well, yeah,
utopian socialists.
they use socialism to describe the utopians and the bourgeois socialists, and communism to describe like what he was advocating for. But he did use it to describe the mode of production and critique of the Gotha program, which is where we do get the distinction between lower and higher phase from.
Exactly.
All right, we can move on.
You're trying to say something, Suku?
I mean, okay. I think that that's enough. Although I would like to say one more thing. You said that there was still wage labor in the Soviet Union.
Correct.
Actually, what?
Correct. There were wages under Khrushchev.
No, there were none.
Of course, there were wages under Khrushchev, and we have a complete analysis of
Okay, I have a question. Were there wages under Stalin?
Yeah, but this makes no sense because under Stalin, the ownership of the means of production passed to the workers.
Okay, so shall we then move on right away to economics?
Go ahead.
I guess you are starting now, since I
Yeah,
started before.
CK, go start. I think from now on we should go into more free form. Just like go pass on the debate yourselves. I'll intervene when necessary. The whole timing thing, it's kind of a bit unnecessary, and that I've kind of broken the flow. So just go free form.
Okay. Anyway, okay. Can Comrade Hellas speak first?
No,
Sure.
it was your turn now, and I'm preparing, so I will let you go first.
Okay, fine. Well, I just don't know what was so capitalist under Khrushchev. It's what you
The
have to explain to me.
liberalization, Khrushchev saw, he liberalized the
Wait, can you
economic system.
say that again?
Yes, Khrushchev saw, he liberalized the economic system.
Actually,
He made
Khrushchev thought was
he made the economic system consumering based, and
actually
yeah,
Khrushchev thought is just peaceful coexistence, and he never liberalized the economy. In fact, he abolished all small market leftovers from the Stalin era. I can give you a few articles. 1 second. Okay, wait.
Wait, send it to me. I need to save that article once and for all.
Wait 1 second. That will take a while. Give me like
okay.
1
First
minute.
of all, Khrushchev's agricultural reforms destroyed the output of the Soviet system. Stalin left a robust agricultural sector, with the Soviet Union being self-reliant, and apparently, Khrushchev being so fond of Americans, he decided to implement, let's say, corn, import corn, and replace all Kazakhstan fields with corn. And of course, this didn't prove wise because the climate doesn't allow it. And from that point, he destroyed the autarky of the Soviet Union in agriculture.
Okay, anyway, let me send the sources now. Okay, here. I actually have 4 sources. I'll just quote them all. Despite the war in a number of sectors, market relations have become entrenched. They have already been uprooted by Khrushchev. They interfered with the formalized class of the party farm nomenclature. Khrushchev had fully nationalized the producers' cooperatives. On April 14th, 1956, there was a resolution of the Central Committee of the CPSU and the Council of Ministers of the USSR on the reorganization of commercial cooperatives, according to which the Artel enterprises were transferred to the state. This state of affairs continued until 1956, when Nikita Khrushchev officially banned and within a few years dispersed all consumer cooperatives. Khrushchev decided to completely transfer all Artel enterprises to the state by 1960. The only exceptions were small-scale consumer services, arts and crafts, and handicraft Artels. Moreover, they were forbidden to carry out regular retail trade in their products. Okay, anyway, I'll send the links.
Basically, what Khrushchev did was he reformed the Soviet industrial infrastructure, which was disagreed by the intelligentsia at the time. He reformed the administrative organization, causing even more problems.
Are you talking about the Sovnarkhozy?
Yes, it was politically motivated to move the weakened central state bureaucracy in 1957. Khrushchev replaced the industrial ministers in Moscow with Regional Council of People Economy, Sovnarkhozes, causing himself many new enemies among the ranks in Soviet government. In 1956, Khrushchev introduced the concept of minimum wage, and now we see the returning on wage labor, since there was a minimum wage and workers weren't paid based off their output. This is a wage-based economy. The idea, which met with criticism, with communist hardliners, they claimed that the minimum wage was so small that most people were still underpaid in reality. The next step was contemplated in financial reform. However, Khrushchev stopped short of real monetary reform when he ordered the replacement of old money bearing portraits of Stalin and made a simple denomination of the ruble 10 to 1. In 1961, Khrushchev finalized his battle. Again? Yeah, of course. In 1961, Khrushchev finalized his battle against Stalin. The body of the dictator was removed from Lenin's mausoleum on the Red Square and then buried outside the also Kremlin. The removal of Stalin's body out of the Lenin's mausoleum was arguably amongst the most provocative moves made by Khrushchev during the thaw. The removal of Stalin's body consolidated pro-Stalinists against Khrushchev and alienated even his loyal apprentices such as Leonid Brezhnev.
Okay, are you done?
I will go on. That now I will refer to consumerism. Khrushchev responded to consumerism more diplomatically than to cultural consumption. In response to American jazz, Khrushchev stated, "I don't like jazz. When I hear jazz, it's as if I had gas on the stomach. I used to think that it was static when I heard it on the radio." Concerning commissioning artists during the thaw, Khrushchev declared, "As long as I'm the president of the Council of Ministers, we are going to support a genuine art. We aren't going to give Kopchek for pictures painted by jackasses." In comparison, the consumption of material goods acted as a measure of economic success. Khrushchev stated, "We are producing an ever-growing quantity of all kinds of consumer goods. All the same, we must not force the pace of unreasonably as regards the lowering the prices. We don't want to lower prices such as an extent, and there will be queues and a black market. Previously, excessive consumer anti-communism was seen as detrimental to the common good." So he limited consumerism. Now it was not enough for the consumer goods to be made more available. Quality of consumer goods needed to be raised as well. A microconception surrounding the quality of consumer goods existed before of advertising the role of the market. Advertising controlled the sales of quotas and created desirability of surplus standards of good. And in 1957, the Communist Party decreed an increase of housing construction, and Khrushchev launched plans of building private apartments that were different from old communal apartments that he had come before. Khrushchev stated that it was important not only to provide people with good homes, but also to teach them to live correctly. He saw a high living standard as a precondition leading to the path of transition to full communism and believed that private apartments could achieve this. Although the thaw marked a time of openness and liberalizing primarily located in the public sphere, the emergence of private housing allows of new formulation of a private sphere in the social life. This resulted in changing ideology that needed to make room for women who were traditionally associated with home consumption of goods in order to create a well-ordered Soviet home. Khrushchev policies showed an interest of rebuilding home and family after the devastation of World War II, yada yada yada. The 7-year plan was launched in 1958 and promised to build 12 million city apartments, 7 million rural homes. Alongside the increased number of private apartments was the emergence of changing attitudes toward the family. So we see that that Khrushchev's liberalized the Soviet Union and also allowed for private ownership of houses. And I would also... Should I allow you to go now and then...
out the Wikipedia article of Khrushchevism?
No, this comes from Khrushchev's thought. Now, should I allow you to go on and we talk about agriculture next, or should I continue?
CK, you want to respond to anything?
Yeah, you can respond, and then I will go on agriculture. Go on.
Okay, sure. Wait 1 second. You mentioned the corn campaign. The corn campaign was not capitalist, so I don't know why you're mentioning that. You also mentioned the minimum wage. I don't see how the minimum wage is wage labor. The minimum wage was created to reduce income inequality. Let me quote.
Something that wasn't achieved and it was actually inefficient.
Can you repeat that?
Income inequality
Can you
wasn't
repeat?
achieved and it was actually inefficient, the minimum wage.
Well, yeah, the economic income inequality was still encouraged. However, it still decreased because the poorest 20% of the Soviets became wealthier, whereas the wealthiest bureaucrats got poorer. Anyway, let me read this out. For almost 30 years, beginning in 1931, every major statement of Soviet wage policy was accompanied by a denunciation of equalitarianism. Some scholars, apparently uninhibited by the paucity of data, concluded that income inequality in Soviet Russia far exceeded anything existing in the Western world. So this means that under Stalin there was bigger wealth inequality than in the US and Britain and France. I think that this is quite extreme and that this was a big problem that had to be solved. The article also says that the following: the situation has changed markedly since 1956 in several important respects, beginning with the 20th Party Congress in 1956 and culminating with the program adopted by the 22nd Party Congress in 1961. The main emphasis in Soviet wage policy has been placed on a narrowing of the income gap between high and low paid personnel. The theme was first enunciated by Mikoyan, which, let me remind you, was a big Stalin loyalist. Let me continue quoting the article now.
Mikoyan was a Stalinist.
Yeah, and he created this. This
Created what?
Dude, have you not been listening right now?
I'm listening to you.
Okay, you can just read what I just said. Anyway, the theme was enunciated by Mikoyan at the 20th Party Congress. It was implemented at the 21st Congress in 1959, at which time a program of increasing minimum wages from their prevailing level of 27 to 35 rubles to 50 to 60 rubles per month by 1965 was announced. It was reasserted at the 22nd Congress, where it was declared in the program that in the next 20 years, the disparity between high and comparatively low incomes must be steadily reduced. Also, I believe that it's quite ironic how support Joe Biden and
What does this have to do with anything? What does it have to do with
listen
anything?
out. You oppose income inequality,
Yes.
and
What does this have to do
yeah,
with
and
anything?
that's why you support Joe Biden. Why do you support income inequality, which is worse
When do I support
than
income
in the
inequality? I
United
don't understand
States?
what you're trying to derail the argument again.
I was saying that the minimum wage was created as part of reducing income inequality in the USSR,
How
and you
can
said
they
that.
reduce income inequality in the Soviet Union when the minimum wage was 100 rubles?
Can you repeat that?
Holy shit. How can they decrease income inequality when the minimum wage was 100 rubles?
According
70,
to
70 rubles it was. So you could earn
according to
as much as 70 rubles in the Soviet Union. When a party official will gain at least 300. How is that reducing income inequality? I don't understand it.
wait, are you talking about like Post-Stalin you saw right now?
Yes. The minimum wage
Well,
set by
I
Khrushchev
can
was 70 rubles.
I can give you statistics of income inequality
Well, I
specifically.
can give you statistics on the
Once
minimum wage in the Soviet Union.
I just gave you minimum wage statistics in the Soviet
I will
Union.
give you mine.
I don't see your point now. Well, anyway, I'm just gonna send. Fuck. Anyway,
Here.
there we go. I found it. Give me 5 seconds.
Of course.
Thank you. There we go. Here. There we go. This divides the Russian population into five groups. The poorest 20%, the wealthiest 20%, then the other 20% 1960s. You know what I mean, right? They divided it like that, and you can see that income inequality was reduced. The wealthiest Soviets, so the bureaucrats, got poorer, whereas the poorest Soviets got wealthier. And if you look at the income statistics of Khrushchev and Brezhnev, you'll see that their income was actually lower than the one of Stalin.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was. I can send
No,
you
you said
statistics as
it
well.
says here 1947, and it says 5, and then 1967 it says 5.7. So what did it decrease? This is an increase.
Where?
In the statistics you just showed me.
From 1970 to 1980, or when?
Yes, but you are talking 15 years after Khrushchev. I'm showing you down. It says 1947,
Oh,
5.
down.
It increased. The biggest group income increased by 0.7% in 20 years.
Well, look at this graph. There are 20 years between this, so it's possible that from 1947 to 1955,
The Gini coefficient under Stalin was actually higher than under Khrushchev, and then it got higher again by Brezhnev. So you're talking rubbish again.
Not really, because I can give you Stalin's income in 1952 and compare it to Khrushchev's later in 1960 and to Brezhnev's in 1973.
But
Stalin
I'm
earned.
using your source,
Wait, where?
the source you posted in the group chat.
Where does it show
What?
Stalin's income?
In
Where does it
1947,
show?
it says 1947. 1947 was under Stalin, correct?
Yes,
And then it says
but it doesn't show
1967, 2 years
Stalin's
after
income
Khrushchev.
itself.
And then it says 1967, 2 years after Khrushchev left. It increased.
Yeah, and look, there were also 8 years before Khrushchev came to power in the statistic. So Khrushchev came to power in 1955, right? And
Yes.
the first statistic it gives is from 1947.
Yes.
And
That was under Stalin.
Yeah, and Khrushchev only came to power in 1955, so it's possible that from 1947 to 1955, income inequality got even worse. And according to the article I posted before, income inequality was reduced from 1956 to 1964. So it's possible that income inequality was still increasing even until 1956. Okay, anyway, okay, so do you want the
First of all,
income of Stalin?
Khrushchev was so disgusting that there was a coup attempt against him. In 1957,
Oh,
Malenkov,
that one.
Molotov, and Kaganovich, very true communists and Stalinists, tried to dethrone Premier Khrushchev. And they were later joined by Dmitry Stepilov because they viewed that Khrushchev was actually a dangerous revisionist that contradicted Marxist-Leninist principles. Instead, they were all exiled by Khrushchev and sent in other posts far away from the capital. This contradicts the humanitarian icon of Khrushchev as against deportations, because he literally did the same to his political enemies. People who tried to stop the disastrous way that the Soviet Union was going.
Okay. Can I? Oh shit. Can I say something to
Yeah,
that?
go on.
You're a Maoist, right?
Yes.
Did you know that Mao supported the crushing of Molotov's coup in 1957?
No, he did not.
What do you think of that? I'm just curious.
He opposed it.
No, he supported it. I can give you a source.
Okay,
One
give me
second.
give me a source.
Okay, sure. 1 second.
Furthermore, Mao condemned the social imperialism that the Soviet Union was conducting in Czechoslovakia and Hungary, that contradicted the Leninist policies of national self-determination.
I'll respond to that in a second. Firstly, this. Here, this was Mao supported the crushing of Molotov's coup, and actually Malenkov was called a revisionist by Khrushchev because
Of course,
Malenkov
Malenkov
wanted
was a
to
very weak leader. What are you talking about?
not because of that, but because Malenkov wanted to put the main focus on light industry and not on heavy industry.
Of course.
Khrushchev, on the other hand, wanted to exaggerate the focus on heavy industry, and he believed, which is true, that uh, putting the main focus on heavy industry is actually a Marxist-Leninist principle. Okay. Anyway. Okay. Anyway.
I'm not
So.
questioning any of this. Actually, I'm not questioning them.
Okay, but I'm just saying, okay, because you're calling these people Stalinists and said that this was unjustified, although you're a Maoist, and although Khrushchev was literally more radical than those people. Molotov even wanted to join NATO, just like Malenkov. In 1954, it was Malenkov who wanted to join NATO, not Khrushchev. Anyway, I also want to now finally respond to your other points. Okay, anyway, you mentioned the removal of Stalin from the mausoleum.
Yes.
That's not capitalism. You also
How is that
mentioned
capitalism?
you said that it
He
is. I'm
desecrated the
not.
body of the greatest socialist in the Soviet Union. That has nothing to do
Yeah,
with economic policy.
they couldn't supply Stalin's body with enough resources. That's why they removed him and just kept Lenin at that point.
What?
Okay, anyway. Yeah, that's the reason.
Can you repeat that?
They 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 couldn't supply Stalin's body with enough resources.
What?
That's the reason, dude. You know like Lenin's body, right?
Yeah.
He's a literal mummy, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, they have to wash him all the time and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
and
They
yeah,
they use a lot of resources
of
to
course.
keep him in his mausoleum, and because they wasted a lot of resources on Stalin's body, they just buried him instead, and just kept Lenin's in the mausoleum
Yeah, because
only.
Khrushchev was butthurt towards Stalin. Personally, he used personal
No,
attacks
not
towards.
no.
He
I showed you before that he said that you can't be a Marxist without being a Stalinist. Okay,
he used
and he
personal
also
attacks
praised
against
Stalin.
Stalin because Stalin used to force him to do all the kinds of things and look down upon him.
Those were not personal attacks.
Of course,
I gave you evidence to the deportations. I used Red Nations by Jeremy Smith. I used Britannica for the doctor spot, and I can also quote
no,
you
I think
Stalin for
you should read extensively on the book of
Grove Fuhrer.
on the book of Grover C. Furr that explains how Khrushchev lied about Stalin.
I already read it. It's bullshit.
How it is bullshit. It goes point by point, and we can go whole day
Firstly,
quoting.
Firstly, he doesn't even give statistics of how many were deported, for example, for one. Secondly, he doesn't address the fact that that Stalin literally approved Yezhov's national massacres. So we see collaboration between Stalin and Yezhov. We have proof of that and more.
What's wrong with that?
And what?
I actually support Yezhov. What's wrong with that?
Well, you see, just most Marxist-Leninists oppose Yezhov, and
That's
Yezhov was
correct.
actually a very
Yezhov
okay.
Yezhov followed
Okay,
Stalin's orders instructed. He became useless after a while.
you okay. You realize that accusations such as the ones against the
I'm sent you a PDF so
Poles
you can
and
read it yourself.
Romanian. What?
I sent you a PDF so you can read it yourself.
I read this. Oh my god, I read it already. Why should I read it again? It's
Because
brain cancer.
maybe it can educate you on how Khrushchev was a terrible revisionist and every single point he made was a lie, except one
Okay,
that was.
okay. Listen, even let's assume Grover Fuhrer didn't lie about Khrushchev. That still will make him a revisionist because if you
It will
oppose
make him a
Stalin,
revisionist because he opposed the dictatorship of the proletariat and he believed in peaceful coexistence.
we
That's
already
revisionist.
covered the state of the whole people. Why the
Of
fuck
course,
are you
because
mentioning that
you
again?
are declining the socialist construct in the Soviet Union.
I am not. I told you. Even Khrushchev. I can quote him about that. 1 second. I might have even posted the quote above. He said that the dictatorship of the proletariat is necessary as long as class antagonism exists. Let me quote
Okay,
him
wait.
about
So
that.
I don't want to butt in, but can we kind of hurry this up because I have to go in a half hour.
All right, we'll wrap it up in a few minutes.
Yeah, we've been going on for a while, so just try
Okay.
speeding it up.
Okay. Okay, let's do this fast. You mentioned the Sovnarkhozy. The Sovnarkhozy, they did indeed set up a bunch of economic regions all over the USSR. However, they couldn't do anything without state approval. So essentially, the economy was planned the exact same way as it was under Stalin. Okay. Anyway, I can give you proof of that. Quote that I'm gonna quote Alec Nov um on page 352 of his book An Economic History of the USSR 1917 to 1991. He says the following: local coordination and regional planning were impeded by the fact that all enterprises of all union interests had lines of subordination to Moscow, and too many minor decisions required the assent of remote ministries. Essentially, these economic regions of the USSR couldn't do anything without state approval. Further, central planning continued to exist. Let me quote him again. It's from the same page of the same book of Alec Nauf. The idea was to cope with the problem of ministerial empire building and insufficient coordination by the drastic expedient of abolishing the industrial ministries altogether and substituting a regional structure coordinated by Gosplan. So there was still central planning.
Okay.
Central planning was not abolished. You're saying BS, man.
I am actually now quoting Dargin J. Frank, the Virgin Lands Program. The 1957 harvest was a failure. Virgin land grain output decreased 40% from 1956 and 80% for the total Soviet Union grain output. In 1958 and 1959, there was almost no new land plowed up by the Virgin land regions. In 1958, harvest was a particularly good one, reaching 58,380,000 tons of grain, only 800 below the record of 62 million tons set in 1956. In 1959, growing season was extremely rainy, causing many difficulties. However, the harvest was not disappointing. The Virgin land crop was 54,551,000 tons, only 6% lower. And he continues. The productivity of the virgin lands underwent a steady decrease following the harvest of 1958.
Okay.
In
Can I say something
1963,
to this?
can I finish? In
Can I interrupt?
1963, Khrushchev began to initiate to a widely expand fertilizer production and availability through the Soviet Union in order to increase the productivity of the virgin lands. The Soviet Union only possessed 20 million tons of fertilizers for every 218 millions of hectares, as opposed to the United States, which possessed 35 million tons of
I
fertilizer
agree
for every
with you.
180
The
million hectares.
Virgin Lands campaign
Khrushchev ordered
decreased output.
60 new fertilizer
Oh.
factories to be built. Even so, the productivity of the virgin lands continued to be declined and never got close, replicating the record harvest of 1956. There we go, I finished. You don't have to interrupt me.
Dude, okay. Let me respond to this. The Virgin Land, I agree with you. The Virgin Lands campaign decreased agricultural output because he planted corn in fucking Siberia.
Exactly. Khrushchev was a
Yeah,
mess.
it could have actually worked well if you just didn't plant corn in where corn doesn't even grow. But what has this to do with his economics? It has nothing to do with his economics. It has nothing to do with decollectivization, and he did not decollectivize. In fact, the MTS that he abolished were replaced. The state-owned MTS that he abolished were replaced by state-owned RTS. Okay, anyway, and I'd also like to mention that there were no capitalist economic reforms. You have mentioned none. What is even called the economic reform which introduced capitalism? What is it called? When did it happen? At what date? When? Okay,
Sure,
and
what happened
also, what is the economic reform which introduced capitalism in the Soviet Union? What is it called?
No, there was no. There was a reform to liberalize the economic system of the Soviet Union under Khrushchev.
What is it called?
I have
It's
to
not.
wait just a minute.
There was no liberalization. I
There
told
was
you.
liberalization
That
because Khrushchev
all small
opened
market
up.
leftovers from the Stalin
Khrushchev
era
opened
were
up.
abolished.
First of all, you lied about the heavy industry. Khrushchev opened
How
up
how
the
did
consumerist
how did I lie?
policy. Can I talk?
What has this to do with capitalism? There were still commodities under socialism under him.
Of course.
I mean that's socialism, non-generalized commodity production. That you know, you know, you know.
Another proof of Khrushchev's incompetence is that following him, Kosygин's economic reform actually surpassed American production and development under
Actually,
Andrei
actually,
Kosygin.
you called him economically incompetent, right?
Yes.
Actually, there was a large economic boom from 1954 to 1958, and also output also heavily increased from 1954 to 1964.
No, because under Stalin in the 50s, the economy grew by 10%. Under Khrushchev, this dropped to 4.8. And
That's no.
finally,
It
under
dropped.
Brezhnev, it fell to 3%, 2%, 1.8%, 0.6%. That's how it goes.
That's not true. I have Soviet estimates. I can send you them. There was no stagnation, and the worst
No,
economic growth rate.
under Brezhnev, the economic stagnation, the GDP grew by 1.8%, which is pretty stagnated. And this is according to the CIA, but according to historian economist Grigory Zakovich-Kanin, the economy grew by 0.6% under Brezhnev, which is pretty much a stagnation.
I can show you Soviet estimates. One
Yeah,
second.
you're using the Soviet estimates that overblow the economic growth.
Okay, but people also use Soviet estimates for economic growth under Stalin. So this is kind of hypercritical. And
All right,
the
let me tell you something. Under Stalin, the economic growth was 6% in 1951, right? And until 1956. When
one
Khrushchev,
second, I can check that.
when
One second.
1955, from 1951 to 1955, the economic growth was 6%. It fell to 5.8 and then to 5% until Khrushchev was ousted from power. Labor productivity grew by 4.8% in the 1950s, but in 1962 it had declined to 4%. Khrushchev
Alright,
made unrealistic promises such as committing to reach communism in 20 years. And
okay, listen.
yeah.
You're using Western estimates, including CIA estimates, and academics in the West can't publish anything, especially in the Cold War, which is not approved by the state if it goes if it's pro-communist or something like that.
Grigory Zakovich-Kanin is a Russian. He's not a Westerner by any means.
From which year is that? Is that the 90s?
Kanin was born in 1937.
Oh, I actually have Hanin as well. Yeah, I have Hanin, but actually, weren't his statistics from like the Perestroika era or something like that, or the 90s?
No, these he covered a wide range, and he shows the economic growth in the 60s, 70s, 80s.
So he did them during the 60s and 70s and 80s, or what?
This shows how.
Now, when did he make them?
I'm telling you, 60s, 70s, 80s.
Yeah, and in that case, it was illegal because they couldn't publish anything that goes against state approval.
Well, they were published. Apparently, they were probably
propaganda.
published after the fall of communism. I mean,
Yeah, I know. Still, and he didn't have any access to the actual economic statistics of the USSR. Only the state had them, and also the reason why, even according to the Soviet estimate, the economic growth decreased
yes,
in the
they decreased
1970s.
by half.
Yeah, and you know why? Because the USSR was becoming even more developed. If you look at the map of economic growth statistics today, then you'll see that excuse my language, shitholes like Libya, Bangladesh,
That's
and
completely wrong.
Ethiopia.
That's completely wrong.
No, they have some of the highest
That's
growth rates
completely
in the
wrong
world.
because you see,
No, no,
you
no,
see.
they have
No,
the
okay,
high.
let me tell you.
I can
Alright,
send you. I can
Let
send
me
you
tell you.
statistics.
Let me
make
tell you.
this, guys, make this last point, and then can we close it up, because I have to be going soon.
Fair enough, but let me tell you. You see some countries that was considered first world, like Ireland, Singapore, and they see annual 10% economic growth by their GDP. This doesn't, of course, only mean that third world countries have big growth. First world countries also see big economic growth. I told you that Ireland had a 10% economic growth in 2008, 2005. I don't remember quite well now. I can search it up, but we need to close it up. So in the 2000s, Ireland saw annual growth of 10%, a first world country. Singapore saw growth of 10%. China has relative growth of 12%, but of course you can consider China a developing economy. I think you're trying to excuse the stagnation as something natural, but it was natural because it was on par with the Americans.
Okay, anyway, I send you a map right now. Ireland is a pretty agricultural nation, and
It
of
was.
course there may be some exceptions here and there, but in 95% of cases, developed countries like Japan, Germany, France, and Britain have pretty low growth rates because they are very developed countries, whereas
Okay, is
for
Nicaragua, Argentina, Sudan, and Iran and Venezuela developed countries? No, they're not, and you see a massive
well, listen, they
recession.
are sanctioned. They're sanctioned, and
Yeah, but they have
um,
massive recessions.
can you repeat
How
that?
is Argentina sanctioned?
Argentina, oh, they have high inflation.
They have
That's what's
massive
fucking them up.
recessions, and you're trying to cop here.
I'm not
Look
coping
up
right now.
Look at Capo Verde, Equatorial Africa. Look how their GDP is shrunk. Yes, you're right.
What
Third world countries usually have
South
big
Africa? S- South Africa has actually at the
No,
coast is
I said Sudan.
more
I
developed.
said Sudan.
Oh, Sudan.
Yes. Yes, you're right. Third world countries usually have massive economic growth, but at the same time they have massive economic recessions. This is not a stable economic growth. But in the Soviet Union there was a stable economic growth, 6%. It fell 5.8 and then 5% under Khrushchev. And labor productivity also fell by 1%.
By 1%.
Yes. Labor productivity.
Well,
And
that's not
GDP as
bad,
well.
dude.
Well, you see that there is a big recession, and under Brezhnev it completely stagnated.
There was not complete stagnation,
There
and
was complete stagnation.
no, because no, again, you're using Western statistics and anti-communist statistics,
How's
and
that anti-communist to say the truth that there was a stagnation?
well, okay, so you believe in anti-communist sources
No,
and
you believe in
statistics, right?
anti-communist source since you're the one believing in Lenin's testament and you're the one believing in gulags and pogroms that never happened.
What programs? I have never believed in any
Well,
programs, and I actually believe.
Khrushchev believed in deportations that were imaginary and never really happened. Khrushchev also released a lot of prisoners from the Gulag system, which raped the entire region of Siberia and looted it. And I can show you.
Actually, Beria rehabilitated them.
Fair enough. He was also answering to his laws and to his policies. It was a Khrushchev policy. He was in power.
Actually, Khrushchev came to power in 1955. Beria already freed them in 1953. In 1953,
No.
Malenkov
There
came to
was
power.
after the death of Stalin, they formed a troika, and Malenkov was at the head of it.
Yeah, I know there was a power struggle from
Exactly.
1953 to 1955, but overall, Malenkov was still the leader.
Okay, Gulag release. Let me send you sources.
And again, I don't believe that gulags were bad. I actually believe that the gulags were better than American prisons today,
Probably.
which is actually
Today,
true.
no. Today, no. Not today. But in the 30s, yes. If we compare labor camps in the
Really?
30s with American camps in the 30s, they were pretty similar, and they have the same death
Well,
rate.
I read online that I can send you the source later that um it, that today American prisons are actually worse than gulags. And anyway,
Okay.
you also addressed private housing before. There was no private housing under Khrushchev. People could build their own houses.
No, he
However,
actually
that's not private
initiated
housing.
a housing reform here, and a third of the housing became
Yeah,
private.
but no, but they couldn't rent it. They could only build it
I don't know that.
themselves.
I don't know what they did with it, but it was private. They owned it, and if they rented
It's
it, that's complete
it's
destruction of
public
socialism.
property. It's public property. Also, 90% of Irish profits go to America. That's why they have such growth rates.
Well, they have companies like Apple. I'm not saying anything.
Yeah, I'm just telling you why
So yeah, as
they
we
have
can
such
see,
growth rates.
Khrushchev was a terrible
And
revisionist that sat on Post-Stalin and the greatest socialist leader overall. He
you have
allowed
not proven how he was a
he,
revisionist or
he
how there were any
allowed
capitalist reforms.
he allowed for the resurrection of the bourgeois classes.
Okay, when,
And
in what economic reform?
thank you for
What is it called?
Okay, you know what?
What?
Since it's taking a while, do you want to make a second video? We can make it again and we can discuss. But Arjuna has to leave, and
Okay, sure. Okay, sure.
Okay, make
But again,
Comrade Hollis,
if
make your
you ask
closing
anyone,
statement.
okay, one more thing. If you ask anyone what economic reform under Khrushchev restored capitalism, what
Okay.
it's called, nobody will answer because there was none like
okay.
that.
The corn production was completely disastrous. The Virgin Land
Yeah, but
reform
I
was
agree with
completely
that. I
disastrous.
I don't see how that's
The
revisionist. I don't even know what
the
you're
economy
talking
fell
about.
apart under Khrushchev. We can argue whole day. The Kosygin reforms were actually successful. So yeah.
Yeah, I can send you statistics
Alright,
as well.
Comrade Hollis, make your closing statement, then Comrade King.
Why would
Okay,
I
we'll
make
have
my
a second stream later as well.
Yes, I guess.
And
Why do I make my
yeah,
closing statement first?
Because Comrade
so I
King
could
went
start
first
or
last time.
Okay, whatever. Alright, kids, Khrushchev was a terrible revisionist. He spat upon
Fuck you.
Stalin.
No.
He resurrected the bourgeois. Are you going to say no on everything I say? He resurrected the
Yes.
bourgeoisie, destroyed
proof.
the Sino. Okay, can I have my fucking statements, please?
Okay, sure.
Thank you. So, yes, Khrushchev was a terrible revisionist. He lied upon Stalin. You can read more on this subject on the following book that I'm going to send in the live stream. Here we debunk Khrushchev lies about Stalin. Furthermore, I would like to stress that he destroyed the Sino-Soviet friendship. He invaded an USSR allied country, Hungary, going against the wishes of Lenin. He then allowed for Czech violinists to play in America and Hungarian swimmers go in the Olympics. He had a friendly, peaceful coexistence with the West and allowed for US investments in Poland, which I will provide the sources on our second video. At the same time, America was bombarding Vietnam and Korea. We see that there are two forms of communism, one dangerous one and one peaceful to the American system. And finally, he dealt a humiliating blow to socialism by withdrawing missiles in Cuba. And even though he had a diplomatic resolution, since Americans will withdraw their missiles from Turkey and Italy, it seemed to the press that the Soviet Union backed down and the Soviet prestige was humiliated. All these are his great destruction of with the corn imports and, of course, the Virgin Land reform. I think that I will wrap it up now, and I will allow Comrade King to say a few words for a minute.
Well, anyway, Comrade Harris failed to prove his point. He didn't even respond to many of my points, such as peaceful coexistence and state of the whole people at the end. And he has not named the name of the economic reform which restored capitalism, because obviously there was none.
We can go through them in a second video.
Yeah, sure. There was also no decollectivization. State collectivized. The state-owned MTS were replaced by state-owned RTS. The corn campaign was a disaster. I mean, everyone does mistakes. We don't deny that. We are Marxist-Leninists. We should accept self-criticism and stuff like that. Yeah, check out my channel.
Go to his channel, subscribe, watch his
Yeah,
videos, leave a downvote.
yeah.
Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.
Bye.
Alright, bye guys.